I'm so proud of it. When you go to a classical concert, you look at the program, who's coming, who's playing, which symphony.
For decades, André Rieu has been the heartbeat of a gentler world, the living echo of waltzes that healed broken hearts and made even the lonely believe in joy again. His violin has drifted through the years like a silver thread of light, fragile, tender, and eternal. He once made millions weep beneath the stars of Maastricht, where laughter and tears danced together in the same melody. Yet behind the graceful bow and that familiar smile stands a man who has spent his later years fighting the cruelest battle of all. The battle for balance itself. A hidden illness once stole the ground beneath his feet, turning the stage he loved into a storm he could no longer control. Every performance since has been a quiet war, fought against dizziness, exhaustion, and the haunting fear that one wrong step could end the music forever. Don't look away, for what he endures now may be the most fragile waltz of his life. And if his music has ever lifted you when the world felt heavy, leave a like below. A quiet tribute to the artist who turned pain into melody and silence into love. Some hearts are born with cracks too wide for childhood to fill. André Léon-Marie Nicolas Rieu was born on October 1st, 1949 in Maastricht, a quiet Dutch city, still carrying the faint ache of post-war Europe. His family was respected, comfortable, never poor, but the air inside their home was thinner than love could breathe. His father, André Rieu Sr., a celebrated conductor, could command thunder from an orchestra, yet never one word of affection from his own son. His mother ran their home like a score with no pauses, precise, spotless, but airless. The Rieu household was one of discipline, not tenderness. Everything was in order except the human heart. My parents didn't love me, André would later recall. Not in bitterness, but in truth. That's not a feeling. That's a fact. He was one of 6 children, each orbiting a man who could make strangers weep, but never his own family laugh. Their meals were quiet, polite, rehearsed. No one raised a voice, no one raised a hand in comfort. His father's perfection was law, his mother's silence, its enforcer. As a boy, André would sit alone, mimicking his father's conducting with a pencil for a baton, hoping to be noticed. He never was. When he finally confessed his dream of becoming a musician of joy, not solemnity, his father dismissed it with a single look. That moment left a crack in André's soul that no applause would ever fully heal. At 5, he picked up a violin that felt far too big for his small hands. The bow trembled not from fear, but from hunger. Hunger for warmth, for sound, for a life that could feel alive. Some nights, his fingers stung from the cold. Yet he played on because pain was the only proof he could still feel. The house would fall silent after dinner, and in that stillness, André would play to the dark, a quiet boy trying to summon comfort from strings and wood. It wasn't just practice. It was survival. The violin, he once said, was my only friend who listened. He learned early that the body can stand straight while the heart is barely holding on. A truth that would one day echo, not only in his music, but in his health as exhaustion and imbalance shadowed him in later years. When André entered the Royal Conservatory of Brussels in the late 1960s, he found no warmth there either. The halls smelled of varnish and ambition. Technique was worshipped. Emotion was scorned. Teachers praised precision, not passion. He dreamed of an orchestra that would smile, sway, and celebrate life. And for that dream, his peers mocked him. Some professors told him to grow up, to stop chasing childish fantasies of happiness. But André's quiet rebellion had already begun. He didn't want to change music. He wanted to change what it felt like to be human while listening to it. By the mid-1970s, André's conviction had hardened like steel beneath the softness of his melodies. At 29 in 1978, with no blessing from family, no financial safety net, and no promise of success. He gathered a handful of musicians who still believed that music could heal. In a modest rehearsal space in Maastricht, the Maastricht Salon Orchestra was born. His first quiet act of defiance against centuries of rigid tradition. The early performances were small, the halls drafty, but the laughter in those rooms was real, and that was enough. Beside him stood Marjorie, the woman who believed in him when belief itself felt impossible. Their love faced fierce opposition. His mother refused their marriage, severing the last fragile tie to the home he came from. "It hurt like losing a piece of myself," André later admitted. "But that pain gave me freedom." He was no longer a son begging for approval. He was an artist building a world where love could breathe freely. "I don't know if forgiveness is the right word," he said decades later. "I simply learned to play through the silence." By 1987, after years of heartbreak and rejection, André stood at the edge of the most daring leap of his life. At 38, when most men were slowing down, he was about to begin again. He decided to form the Johann Strauss Orchestra with just 12 musicians, a decision many called reckless. The classical elite sneered, dismissing him as a sentimental dreamer chasing an illusion. "He's trying to make classical music smile," they whispered. But André's vision was unshakable. "They said I was mad," he would later recall with a weary smile. "But I'd rather go mad with joy than die in perfection." The early years were grueling. Money came in like hesitant applause, never enough to rest, barely enough to continue. Every concert was a gamble. He poured everything he had into survival. There were nights he played on stages so cold that his fingers numbed mid-performance. Nights he skipped meals to pay his musicians first. "There were moments," he said, "when the light swam before my eyes, and the floor felt as if it might disappear. But the music kept me standing." On January 1st, 1988, he took the stage for their first major concert. 12 musicians, one fragile hope. The performance soared. The applause was thunderous. Yet when the lights dimmed, he sat backstage trembling, his hands aching, and the ledgers still bleeding red. Some months, the numbers barely worked. He would walk through freezing streets after shows, coat pulled tight, whispering to himself, "Just one more concert, one more miracle." In a small hotel room, he once counted coins by lamplight until dawn. Sometimes exhaustion blurred his vision mid-performance, yet his bow never faltered. "If I fall," he once told himself, "let it be on stage. At least I'll have fallen in music." Looking back now, André recalls those years not as struggle, but as revelation. "I don't remember the debts," he said softly. "I remember the faces, the people who smiled when I played. That was how I knew it was worth every bruise." Slowly, painfully, the seeds began to bloom. City by city, laughter replaced doubt, and the dream that had once felt impossible began to sing back to him. The turning point came in 1995 when his performance of Shostakovich's Waltz No. 2 during a UEFA Champions League match moved a stadium of tens of thousands into stunned silence before erupting into applause that felt almost biblical. It happened on April 19, 1995 in Amsterdam's Olympic Stadium. Ajax was playing Bayern Munich. During halftime, André stepped onto the pitch, violin in hand, surrounded by 40,000 football fans. The stadium fell silent as the first notes drifted across the grass. Then something magical happened. The crowd began to sway. They started singing along. Football fans who moments before had been screaming were now lost in the beauty of a Russian waltz. When the last note faded, the eruption shook the stadium walls. Millions watching on television across Europe witnessed the moment. Overnight, André Rieu went from struggling artist to international phenomenon. The album Strauss & Company shot to number 1, staying there for 19 consecutive weeks. It became the best-selling CD of 1995. 200,000 copies sold immediately. The second waltz stayed in the charts for 30 straight weeks, a feat no classical piece had ever achieved. "That night changed my life," he later said. "But it also marked the beginning of my greatest test, to keep that light burning without burning myself." From that moment, Rieu's life became a blur of airports, rehearsals, and stages. The tours were dazzling, but behind the beauty was an empire that consumed him. He was not just the artist. He was the producer, the financier, the caretaker of more than 100 lives. The responsibility was suffocating. He managed rehearsals, travel, payrolls, insurance, marketing, all while performing each night as if no burden existed. Each bowstroke on stage was a negotiation with fatigue. Some nights his vision blurred from exhaustion. Still, he smiled. Still, he played. There were times, he confessed, when I bowed and could barely feel my arms, but the audience gave me their strength back. By the early 2000s, Rieu had built an independent musical empire. He built his own recording studio in Maastricht, so he could control every sound without interference. The scale of his productions ballooned. Hundreds of staff, millions in logistics, tens of thousands of tickets per tour. In 2009, when unexpected cancellations and medical exhaustion struck, the financial loss nearly broke him. More than $15 million vanished in months. "I wasn't sleeping," he later said. "I was calculating how to save everyone who depended on me." Yet, even amid chaos, André never compromised his vision. Dozens of properties housed his staff and stored instruments. His chefs cooked to keep his musicians healthy. He even built a nursery for the children of his performers. Every decision was not luxury. It was love disguised as labor. "My orchestra is my family," he once said, "and you don't abandon family." By the time André commanded the world stage, his wealth was staggering, an estimated $600 million. Yet to him, the real triumph was not money, but survival. "People see the beauty," he said softly, "but not the pain behind it. I'm proud of both." Among André's many treasures, none carry the same pulse of life as his castle and his Stradivarius violins. The 15th century castle in Maastricht was more than stone and splendor. It was the place where, as a boy, he first learned that sound could heal. When he bought it in 1999, after decades of touring and fatigue, it wasn't pride, but survival. "I wanted a place," he once said, "where my heart could rest while the world kept spinning." Restoring the castle became an act of therapy. Brick by brick, he was rebuilding himself. Inside its walls, he built a recording studio, not just for work, but for refuge. On days when his balance faltered and his strength waned, he would retreat there, bow in hand, letting music pulse through him like medicine. Equally sacred were his two Stradivarius violins, one from 1667, another from 1732. Their wood bore the fingerprints of centuries. To Rieu, they were extensions of his own heartbeat. "When I hold them," he said, "I feel time breathing." In 2010, at the absolute peak of his reign, André had never felt more invincible. At 62, he joked that he didn't know what jet lag was. His body was a machine that never failed him, until the night it did. It happened at 3 a.m. in a Belgian hotel room. André's eyes opened in the darkness, and the world had turned into a nightmare. The ceiling spun like a carousel without brakes. The walls tilted and swayed. He reached for the bedside lamp. His hand grasped only empty air. "What's happening to me?" he whispered. By morning, the man who had commanded orchestras across 5 continents couldn't stand without gripping the walls. Doctors delivered the verdict: vestibular neuritis, a viral infection that invaded the inner ear, attacking the vestibular nerve. For a violinist, balance is everything. Without it, there is no performance. The room still spun. The nausea came in waves, and for the first time in 5 decades, André had to speak words that felt like betrayal. I can't. Tours across Australia evaporated overnight. UK concerts cancelled. Thousands of fans sent home with broken hearts. Letters poured in from every continent. But inside those castle walls, André faced a battle no audience would witness. He lay bedridden, unable to walk a straight line without collapsing. Doctors prescribed rest. Time, they said. But time is the one thing a touring musician doesn't have. Every empty day meant empty venues, musicians without work, an empire grinding to a halt. Pierre watched his father, the invincible maestro, reduced to clutching door frames just across a room. Marjorie whispered the same words over and over. The music will wait. The music will always wait. But André didn't know if he believed her. Weeks turned into months. The vertigo receded slightly, but never fully disappeared. Each morning brought the same cruel test. Open your eyes and see if the room still spins. And then, from 10,000 miles away came a miracle. A letter arrived from Melbourne. Inside, a stranger had written about their own battle with the same vestibular hell. I know what you're going through, the letter began, but I found a way back. Let me show you. What followed were hand-drawn diagrams. Walk in figure eights. Stand on one foot, eyes closed. Retrain your brain, one trembling step at a time. André stood, gripping the back of a chair, and tried. Day 1, he fell immediately. Day 30, he stood on one foot for 10 seconds. Day 90, he walked a straight line without clutching furniture. The fan from Australia had saved the maestro. Slowly, painfully, André began to reclaim his body. The exercises became his new rehearsal routine. The castle corridors became his practice stage. Recovery is not a miracle, he learned. It's a negotiation with your own stubborn will, repeated 1,000 times until your body finally agrees. By late 2010, he returned to the stage. The applause was different. Not just admiration, relief. People wept openly. But the virus had left its mark. His inner ear would always be a weakness now. A permanent fragility hidden beneath the smile. If it returned during a performance, the consequences could be catastrophic. Still, he played on. Because what else could he do? In 2016, grief struck from a place he never expected. Ruud Merckx, his trombonist and closest friend, died in his sleep. No warning. No goodbye. André took the stage that night anyway, but every note trembled with the weight of absence. He was like a brother, André would later say. After that night, André began leaving a single silent bar during each performance. A pause, a breath, a moment when the world stopped long enough to remember. That silence belonged to Ruud. And then came 2020. The pandemic swept across the world. One by one, concert halls went dark. The stages André had filled for 50 years sat empty. For the first time in his adult life, André had nowhere to go. Inside the castle, violins rested in their cases, like soldiers awaiting orders that would never come. But the cruelest silence wasn't in the rooms. It was in the bank accounts. 120 people depended on him. No concerts meant no revenue. Reserves drained like blood from a wound. Months passed. The numbers mocked him at night. He sold a vintage car, let go of investments, anything to keep the salaries flowing. And then came the night that nearly broke him completely. He stood before his 1732 Stradivarius violin, the instrument that had traveled the world with him, older than nations, a piece of his very soul. The thought of selling it made him physically ill. But if it meant saving his people, he lifted the violin, held it in the fading light. "I'm sorry," he whispered. But he couldn't do it. Even in desperation, he stopped short. Because some things must remain whole to keep beating. Marjorie found him there, tears streaming down his face. "The music will wait," she whispered. This time, he chose to believe her. By March 2024, The world had reopened. André, now 74, returned to the stage. But his body had not forgotten. Mexico City. 6 sold-out concerts. Over 40,000 tickets. It should have been triumph. But Mexico City sits 2,240 meters above sea level. The air is thin, the oxygen scarce, and André's fragile inner ear began sending distress signals. The first 2 concerts were electric. Then came the third night. Backstage, Pierre found his father slumped against a wall, phone trembling in his hand. Sweat soaked through his tuxedo, his face pale as parchment. Breathing came in desperate gasps. "I called Marjorie," André whispered. "I told her, I never want another opening night like this again. Altitude, jet lag, flu, exhaustion, age." They had converged like assassins. 40,000 fans went home disappointed. 125 crew members flew home early. Millions in losses evaporated. But the real cost was measured in the look on Pierre's face when he realized his father was mortal after all. After Mexico, everything changed. Pierre stopped being a tour manager and became a human shield. No more intercontinental marathons. The pace slowed. Every venue now required oxygen tanks backstage, mandatory rest intervals, heart rate monitors. A handwritten checklist appeared, taped to every dressing room wall. Hydrate before stage. Limit encore length. No handshakes until pulse stabilizes. And one question filtered every decision. "Can father do this without breaking?" André would argue. "I feel fine." Pierre would shake his head. "That's what you said in Mexico." The son had learned what the maestro refused to accept. Immortality ends the moment you try to prove it. Now, at 76, André's performances are different. Fewer high-energy pieces, more ballads, more slow, waltzes. Audiences don't notice the changes. They see the same magic. But those who know him see the truth. Every concert is now a negotiation between passion and preservation. Every bow stroke, a quiet victory over the body's limitations. When he walks off stage now, his shirt clings to him with the same heaviness he felt in Mexico City. Pierre is always there, watching, ready to catch him if he falls. For more than half a century, Marjorie has been the unshakable anchor, the quiet architect behind the empire. She managed every schedule, every tour, every fragile moment of his health with the precision of love disguised as duty. Through decades of sleepless flights, financial storms, and the pandemic's stillness, she never wavered. "Marjorie saved my life more times than music ever did," André once admitted. "She believed when I couldn't." Their son Pierre grew up backstage, falling asleep to tuning strings and rehearsals. Today, he stands as the vigilant guardian of his father's legacy, protecting the body that once carried entire symphonies on its shoulders. When the applause fades, Pierre once said, "That's when my real job begins, making sure my father wakes up to another sunrise strong enough to play." And then, there is his granddaughter, whose tiny fingers dance across piano keys with the same quiet wonder that once lived in his 6-year-old hands. Watching her play, he once whispered, "It's as if the music has found a new body to live in." Today, in November 2025, André resides in his 150-year-old home near his cherished castle. The rhythm of his days has slowed. Dawn walks in misty gardens, herbal teas, and meals carefully balanced to preserve the fragile stamina that age has claimed. In the afternoons, he retreats to his studio, sometimes playing for hours, sometimes just touching the violin, as if in conversation with an old friend. Evenings are for Marjorie, Pierre, and his granddaughter. Quiet dinners, soft laughter, and the comfort of love rather than applause. His family already understands what his truest inheritance will be. It is not his vast fortune, nor the castle, nor the priceless violins. It is his life itself. The courage to create warmth where none was given. The discipline to keep faith when the body faltered. the resilience to play on when silence threatened to swallow everything. His net worth may be measured in hundreds of millions, but his real wealth lies in millions of hearts that beat a little steadier when they hear his waltzes. The echoes of his July 2025 concerts still linger. Thousands stood together under the summer sky, tears glistening as the final note faded into the stars. "I am still here," he whispered backstage, "and so is the music." Now, in early November 2025, André plays fewer notes, but each carries the weight of a lifetime. His health, though more fragile, is no longer an enemy, but a teacher. Every breath he draws, every bow he raises, is a quiet defiance of time. He knows the curtain will fall someday, but not yet. Not while his heart still beats in waltz time. Because in the end, André Rieu's true legacy is not measured in applause or awards, but in the unseen lives he has lifted. The widower who smiled again, the lonely who felt less alone, the aging who found courage to keep dancing. His life reminds us that the truest music is not what we hear, but what we feel. The will to keep breathing, to keep loving, to keep believing in beauty, no matter how heavy the years become. If André's melodies have ever carried you through grief or brought you back to joy, leave your tribute below. Even a single word of gratitude is a note in his eternal symphony. And as you listen tonight, remember this: no matter where you are, no matter how tired your heart feels, there is still music left in you. May you live your own waltz in health, in peace, and in the quiet wealth of a life well loved.